Environmentalist and late TV personality Steve Irwin once said, "The single biggest threat to our planet is the destruction of habitat, and along the way, the loss of precious wildlife. We need to find a balance where habitat, wildlife, and human can coexist. If we don't, everyone loses. One day." One of the most prevalent issues of our generation is climate change. Typically, when people think of it, they think of how temperatures are rising. But climate change doesn't just end there. It also involves how fossil fuel byproducts threaten life itself. As someone who has had a lot of family members and friends pass away from cancer, it's always been important to me to investigate how plastic contributes to those cancer numbers. In the 1950s, there were only 2 million tons of plastic produced. By 2015, there were 380 million tons of plastic produced. Which is why today I'm here to persuade you to reduce your plastic consumption. You should reduce your plastic consumption because it harms the environment, it harms human health, and because there are so many alternatives to it. The first reason to cut plastic consumption out of your life is due to the damage it does toward the wildlife, sea life, and environment in general. Plastic is not biodegradable, meaning once you put it out into the environment, it doesn't decay. So when sea creatures consume them, it can have serious health effects. According to Girl Scientist, who is an evolutionary ecologist and science journalist for Forbes, a shipwreck in 1992 tossed 28,000 rubber duckies into the ocean, which are still adrift to this day. In her 2018 article, 5 Ways Plastic Harm the Environment and How They May Help It, we learn that these rubber duckies are one of the many plastics adrift at sea. In addition to them, there are Lego pieces, utensils, a styrofoam installation, you name it. There's a plethora of plastic items at sea, which is why plastic can be found in 90% of seabird guts, 50% of turtles, and it causes whales to choke. By 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than actual sea life, because every year we discard 8 million tons of plastic into the ocean. But plastic doesn't just affect sea life. It affects non-sentient life too. According to Down to Earth's 2020 article, Plants Can Absorb Plastics as Well fine study, we're informed that nanoplastics find their way into the ecology of plants. In the Nature Nanotechnology study, 2 Arabthalliana weeds are tested. One of them is exposed to plastic in 50 bits per ton, while the other is not exposed at all. The results were groundbreaking because the one that was exposed ended up having a smaller mass and shorter roots. The other one grew to its full potential. As critical as this may sound, the impacts of plastic get worse, especially when we look at our own species. Plastic has been linked to causing diseases such as cancer and reproductive burdens such as infertility. Cancer, diabetes, and birth defects have all been linked to the use of plastic, and most people don't even know what they're putting into their body. The writer on environment and wildlife, Brian Binkowski, informs that plastic resins and additives are an undetectable threat to our health. In his 2019 article, Plastic Threatens Our Life from Before Production to Long After It's Thrown Away, Binkowski explains why this is damaging. If you're anything like me, you get your groceries from the grocery store, and 9 times out of 10, it's wrapped or packaged in plastic. You don't think much of it, but little do you know that that plastic gets absorbed into the food. Now, if you wouldn't inhale carbon dioxide, why would you inhale another product of fossil fuels? They're just as bad. Plastic can poison air and poison water, just like greenhouse gases. But it doesn't just end there. Plastic also affects men and women's reproductive abilities. Pooji Lastari, an infectious disease epidemiologist, explains this phenomenon in her 2020 journal, Plastic and its Effects on Women Reproductive Systems. So the plastic disrupts the endocrine system and affects the hormone pathways in a woman and interacts with the hormone receptors. If that's not bad enough, the plastic chemicals also affect the ovarian and reproductive systems within the females, which is why 30% of female infertility is due to plastic consumption. And plastic doesn't just affect women, it affects men too. So, in the 2020 article, Sperm Counts Are on the Decline, Could Plastics Be to Blame?, written by science and health journalist Teresa Carr, we learn that PCB 153 and DEHP plastics are the reason why sperm count and effectiveness of sperm in men is declining. DEHP is used to make plastics malleable, while PCB 153 is found in older plastic equipment. In the 1970s, PCB 153 was banned in the US because it had a direct linkage to cancer, diabetes, and other birth defects from children that were exposed to it in utero. But it doesn't just affect those children or people that were exposed to it. It also affects sperm. It affects the sperm motility, which is the effectiveness that a sperm has in fertilizing an egg during conception. But despite all these reasons to cut plastic out of your life, it wouldn't be reasonable for me to ask you to do that unless I had sensible alternatives. Since its inception in the 1950s, plastic has become a staple convenience around the world. It's seemingly everywhere and used in countless day-to-day items, from toys to utensils. When it comes to reducing the plastic consumption and usage, it's important to start off small. One of the easiest ways to cut plastic out of your life is by phasing out water bottles and going to another convenient alternative. Food Network journalist Jessica Von Martin proposes a few water bottle substitutes in her 2019 article, Single-Use Water Bottle Alternatives, so you can ditch plastic for good. With so much industrial advancement, there's a wide selection, from canned water bottles to boxed water to even water pods. There's so many good alternatives. One of my favorites is Hydrotherm. So this one is a Hydro Peak, and it holds 32 ounces of water. One of my favorite parts about it is that it keeps water cold up to 24 hours. In addition, a nice perk is that if you drop it or hit it, it doesn't dent. So I wouldn't suggest any of these if I didn't use them myself. It only takes one water bottle or one six-pack soda ring to kill wildlife. Every time you choose boxed water over a plastic water bottle, you're ensuring the health and safety of a helpless animal. Tree byproducts are way less likely to give you cancer, unlike fossil fuels, so choosing eco-friendly alternatives is sort of a win-win for everyone. Whether it's to save the environment, ensure good health for animals, or even ensure your own fertility, I hope that you may reconsider using plastic products. Plants, animals, and humans are relying on the phasing out of plastic goods. Our influence on the world around us won't change overnight, but with every boxed water or piece of plastic we place in the trash, we can save the world one life at a time. So instead of using that plastic water bottle for your workout or a plastic fork for your next meal, purchase a Hydrotherm like me, or keep metal utensils in your backpack. Make saving the environment creative and fun.